Number 1. The Sin Eater. Imagine your job interview involves eating bread off a corpse. In the 18th century, if you died with a mountain of sins, your family would hire a sin eater to fix your afterlife. A piece of bread and a bowl of ale were placed on the chest of the deceased to soak up their sins. The sin eater then had to consume it, literally taking those sins into their own soul. It's basically a sinful buffet. Imagine being full, but having to eat the sins of a village horse thief. Talk about a heavy lunch that lasts for eternity. They were spiritual outcasts, avoided by everyone and paid only a few copper coins. They carried the weight of 1,000 strangers' sins, dying in total isolation. Number 2. The Rat Catcher. In Victorian London, rats were the ultimate enemy, carrying the fleas that spread the deadly bubonic plague. Somebody had to stop them, and that was the rat catcher. These catchers used their bare hands or small dogs to grab the rats. They often rubbed oils on their hands to attract them, but one tiny bite could mean a slow, painful death. It's a great job if you like high-stakes hide and seek, but your opponent has rabies and wants to eat your toes for breakfast. Most catchers died from the very diseases they were trying to stop. They were the frontline soldiers against filth, and most of them didn't survive to collect their pay. Number 3. The Whipping Boy. The job. Being friends with a prince sounds like a dream, unless you're his whipping boy. In the 1600s, royal tutors weren't allowed to hit a prince because he was considered divine. Whenever the prince failed a test or misbehaved, the teacher would lash the whipping boy instead. The idea was that the prince would feel so guilty that he would behave. Hey Billy, why is your back purple? Oh, the prince forgot his math today. I'm really hoping he learns his multiplication tables by tomorrow. You were a human punching bag for a spoiled brat. You suffered for mistakes you didn't even make, all for the honor of living in a cold, lonely palace. Number 4, the Resurrectionist. The job. In the 1800s, medical schools were desperate for bodies to dissect. But since donation wasn't legal, they hired resurrectionists to provide the merchandise. They snuck into graveyards at midnight to dig up fresh corpses. It was a race against time and coffin guns. Trap guns that would shoot anyone trying to open the casket. It's basically Uber Eats. But the delivery is a dead guy named Bob, and the customer is a doctor with a very sharp set of knives. It was illegal, risky, and disgusting. If you didn't get shot by a trap, you could be caught by an angry mob. A job that literally put one foot in the grave every night. Number 5, the Roman Fuller. In ancient Rome, white tunics were a status symbol. To keep them sparkling, they were sent to a fuller. But their secret cleaning ingredient wasn't fancy soap. It was aged human urine. The fuller had to stand knee-deep in tubs filled with old pee all day long, stomping on the clothes with bare feet to dissolve the grease. It was a chemical bath for your skin and a constant assault on your nose. Talk about a piss-poor career choice. Your whole life literally smells like a public toilet on a hot summer day. No amount of cologne can fix that. They were experts in laundry, but lived in absolute filth. They were the unsung heroes who made Romans look glorious, while they themselves smelled like a sewer. Number 6, the Night Soil Man. Before the invention of modern plumbing and sewer systems, cities had giant cesspools under houses filled with human waste. The Night Soil Man was the poor soul hired to empty them. They only worked at night because the stench was so powerful it would literally cause a public riot during the day. They used shovels to scoop waste into buckets and carried it away on their backs. It's like being a midnight ninja, but instead of shurikens, you're carrying a 50-pound bucket of, well, let's just say night soil. Without them, cities would have literally drowned in their own filth. They did the world's dirtiest job so the rest of the world could breathe and sleep in peace. Number 7, the Groom of the Stool. This sounds like a disgusting joke, but it was one of the most powerful and intimate positions in the British royal court. The groom was the king's personal assistant for his bathroom needs. His primary duty was to monitor the king's health by checking his bowel movements, and most importantly, wiping the royal backside. He had to be discreet and perfectly timed. It's the only job where you get promoted for being a professional wiper. You had the king's ear, but you also had to deal with his aftermath. Talk about a power flush. It was a disgusting job with immense power. They were the king's closest confidants, all because they weren't afraid to get their hands dirty for a royal secret. Number 8, the Leech Collector, the 1800s. Doctors believed bloodletting cured everything. To supply the demand for blood-sucking leeches, they hired leech collectors to act as living bait. These collectors, usually poor women, would walk into stagnant, muddy ponds and simply wait for the leeches to bite their legs. Once the leeches were full of blood, the collector would pull them off and put them in a jar. It's the ultimate blood-sharing plan. You provide the buffet, and the leeches provide the pain. No tips included, just a lot of tiny, unwelcome friends. Most collectors suffered from chronic infections and extreme blood loss. They literally drained their own lives to supply a doctor's jar for a few copper coins. Number 9, the Chimney Sweep, Victorian London. If you were small, thin, and poor, you were headed for the chimney. It was a job exclusively for children, some as young as 4 years old. These children were forced to climb up narrow, soot-filled stone flues. If they were too scared to move, their masters would light a small fire below to motivate them to climb faster. It's not like the movies. There's no singing on rooftops, just a lot of coughing, and a high chance of becoming a permanent part of the brickwork. It was dangerous, bone-breaking, and caused terrible diseases. A childhood spent in a dark, suffocating tube for the sake of a clean fireplace. Number 10, the Matchgirl. Working in a match factory in the 1880s sounded simple, but the white phosphorus used to make the match heads was a silent, glowing killer. Breathing in phosphorus fumes caused phossy jaw. The worker's jawbone would literally begin to rot away, eventually glowing a ghostly greenish white in the dark before falling off. On the bright side, you didn't need a flashlight at night. On the downside, well, your face was slowly dissolving. Talk about a glowing personality. These girls worked 14 hours a day for tiny wages, while their bodies were literally rotting from the inside out. A truly toxic way to earn a living. Number 11, the knocker-upper. Before alarm clocks were cheap or reliable, how did people wake up for work? They hired a knocker-upper to be their human alarm system. They would use long bamboo sticks to tap on second-story windows or pea shooters to fire dried peas at the glass until the resident woke up. It was the most annoying job in history. Imagine getting paid to be the person everyone in the neighborhood wants to throw a bucket of water at. It was a simple job, but essential for the industrial world. They were the reason the factories started on time, even if they were the least popular people on the street. Number 12, the Plague Doctor. During the Black Death, these doctors were the last line of defense. They looked like giant, terrifying birds, wearing long robes and masks with huge beaks. The mask was filled with strong-smelling herbs to block the bad air. They used their canes to poke and examine patients from a distance to avoid catching the plague themselves. You look like a horror movie villain, you smell like a spice rack, and your primary medical tool is a stick. 10 out of 10 for style, 0 out of 10 for actually saving lives. Most of them weren't even real doctors. They were just people desperate for a job. They stood between life and death, looking like the Grim Reaper's bird. Number 13. The Mudlark, Victorian London, the poorest of the poor, mostly children, worked as mudlarks. They spent their days scavenging through the thick, freezing mud of the River Thames during low tide. They waded through raw sewage and dead animals to find anything of value. Pieces of coal, old iron nails, or lost coins. They worked barefoot, and a single cut from a piece of broken glass often meant a fatal infection. It's basically a treasure hunt. But instead of a tropical beach, you're crawling through a giant bowl of 19th century toilet water. Splendid. They risked drowning in disease every day for just a few pennies. They were the bottom of the social ladder, literally living off the city's waste. Number 14. The Toad Doctor, medieval England. If you had a disease like scrofula, you didn't go to a surgeon. You went to a toad doctor. Yes, it's exactly what it sounds like. The treatment involved placing a live toad in a muslin bag and hanging it around the patient's neck. People believed the toad would absorb the sickness as it slowly died. Imagine calling in sick to work. I can't come in today. My neck toad hasn't finished absorbing my sore throat yet. He's looking a bit bloated. It was a job based on pure superstition. These doctors made a living selling dead amphibians as a cure for the dying, making everyone's final days just a little weirder. Number 15, the Gong Farmer. If you thought the night soil man was bad, meet the Gong Farmer. This was a job in Tudor England, and their only task was to clean out the privies, the deep pits under toilets. They were only allowed to work between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. They literally had to climb down into the pits and stand in human waste to shovel it out. One Gong Farmer actually drowned in a pit. It's the ultimate shitty promotion. You spend your nights in a hole, and your only friends are rats and things that shouldn't be named. They earned a decent wage, but they had to live in designated areas because they smelled so bad. A job that isolated you from humanity for the sake of its hygiene.